Okay, I'm so sorry in advance, and I hate to break the news, but Tengen is at the very bottom of my Hashira list from favorite to least favorite. I'm sorry! Hello there, my fandom friends! Today I will be breaking down episode 3 of the Hashira Training arc from Demon Slayer. Fully recovered Tanjiro joins the Hashira Training, and I will be talking mainly about manga 15 from the Demon Slayer series and comparing it to this anime episode. I have a whole series like this on my channel where I'm breaking down every episode. Not so much my thoughts, but more of the importance of the similarities and differences that we're seeing in the anime and the manga. The reason why I'm doing this is so that if people haven't read the manga, they can see how much is being added to the anime and kind of the importance of these scenes, showing foreshadowing and things that are to come to make things more emotional later, to have more context. And so I'm going to be talking about all of that in this video for this episode. I was lucky enough to go to a convention a couple weeks ago and watch this episode with a group of my friends, so we really enjoyed that time together watching something we love. Before I get started, I also wanted to quickly explain that I am doing a Hashira cosplay challenge where I'm having all of my subscribers on YouTube, all of my followers on Instagram, help me decide which Hashira to cosplay next. Because of Hashira Training coming out, I wanted to do something fun for cosplay and for these awesome Hashira characters. And so I've put together different rounds of the challenges to see which Hashira is gonna win based on all of your votes. And so round 1 already happened and OpenEye won, so I am putting together OpenEye's cosplay currently. And so round 2 will be starting soon. I will put more information up here so that you guys can check out the full video explaining that Hashira challenge. Go check it out. I also wanted to mention that there will be no spoilers for the manga, this book and ahead from what we've seen in the anime thus far. And so no need to worry about that until the end of the video, where I will give a spoiler warning when I do talk about spoilers. So let's get into this. So in the manga, this episode is quite funny because in the manga, we get 5 panels that are shown in this anime episode. And so you can tell that there has been so much added, and I'm about to talk about the importance of it all. But the 5 panels that we get are very short. Tanjiro going to Tengen's training. We see Tanjiro's part of the training, which is very much in depth in the anime, but literally nothing in the manga. It basically just kind of time skips to 10 days later. And so in the manga, we start in chapter 132. That's where we're at right now. Of course, we've seen that the anime has been jumping around, but this starts at the very beginning of chapter 132 and ends literally 1.5 pages later. Literally not even a half of a page. It's just 1 page and like 1 or 2 panels. So we start off the episode with, again, Tengen beating on all of his trainees. Of course, he's not trying to be mean, he's just trying to whip them into shape because a demon is not going to show them mercy. And we saw a little bit of this in chapter 130 of the manga, but we already kind of saw that a couple episodes ago, so we're just getting kind of a recap on Tengen training his trainees. Tengen basically explains the very easy way, but kind of harsh way, that if they can't get past the basics of his training, because that's literally what they're doing, they're like exercising for the most part, then they're basically screwed. So honestly, it's kind of hard to watch a lot of these trainees struggle as much as they do compared to the Komaboko squad of Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, seeing how far they've already come. In the anime, he calls them slackers. In the manga, I think it was in chapter 130, he calls them like worthless and losers, which pretty much basically means the same in the Japanese to English translation. Okay, I'm so sorry in advance, and I hate to break the news, but Tengen is at the very bottom of my Hashira list from favorite to least favorite. Sanemi's at the very bottom, Tengen is a little bit above him. I don't hate him, I just dislike him. I'm sorry if you have a different opinion about Tengen than I do. I appreciate you, I respect you, but Tengen is just not for me. Going into this, I just wanted to preface that. Something about Tengen that I really do like, though, is the kind of dad energy he gives off and how much he loves his wives. those are the two main things about Tengen that I really do enjoy. We can see, again, his love and care for Tanjiro. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. His love for his wives, which I'll talk about later as well, but he does have some good things running for him as far as how I like his character. And so too, my very first point about that is that Tengen truly does care about Tanjiro. He's like a dad, he has that kind of energy. We see that Tanjiro is like running up to him. Tengen turns around and sees that it's Tanjiro, and his face changes. It's the cutest thing how happy he gets upon seeing Tanjiro. Now, the dialogue here in the anime versus the manga is pretty much the same between Tanjiro and Tengen. Tengen does just emphasize a little bit more about his eye. He kind of taps that eye blinder and he's like, yep, I'm holding up, I'm doing good. And honestly, like, it looks so good how bejeweled he made it. It's so fitting for Tengen and his flashiness. In the manga, we get a quick panel of the wives making food, making sure that Tanjiro is eating, and then in the next panel we see Tengen, the wives, and Tanjiro walking away after 10 days of training. And so yes, of course, this did happen at the very beginning with the food and at the very end of the episode with Tanjiro leaving, but everything in between we didn't get to see, which we're unfolding here in this anime-only content in this episode. And so if I were to end the video here, basically just describing the differences and similarities of the manga, the similarities would be over, so we are going to be talking about the differences now, which is an extra 20 minutes of context that we don't get in the manga that's in the anime. And I want to explain why all of it is still very important to moving the story forward. Starting off, we are getting more context on Tengen's wives, which I think is really good and purposeful. They aren't just Tengen's wives who are just sitting off to the side having kind of like side character vibes. They are side characters, but they did still play, all three of them, a heavy role in Entertainment District. And we can see now that they are still playing a heavy role in making sure that all of these trainees are eating, that they're healthy, they have energy, which is really important, and it's the job of someone, so why not the wives, since they're already characters. I found this part super interesting, and kind of this was touched on a few episodes ago and an episode previously, but the wives are very much adamant, so is Tengen, on the fact that all of these trainees have to eat before moving on. They want them to eat, they're encouraging them to eat because they need energy to continue. This is something that was very different when Kratts was training Tanjiro in the Swordsmith Village arc. And it kind of goes against kind of traditional ways from movies and stories that at least I've seen, where when someone's training, they're not going to really get fed until they do their job or pass a certain level or part of their training, then they're rewarded with food. And so kind of giving the threat of like, well, you're not eating until you do this. That was very different in this episode. Tengen did mention it once before, but I don't know if he would have really fallen through on it. We see a bit later that Tengen actually went back to the mountain that the trainees run around because someone was missing. He went back and got them. So he's not as harsh and cold as maybe some of the other Hashira that we see, like Open Eye and Sanemi. We get a really quick, short scene of the trainees talking. Tengen is sitting on a boulder off to the side, kind of looking out in the distance, and we get to experience kind of how well his hearing actually is. The trainees are complaining and thinking of the best way to go about tricking Tengen. Tengen's not having that. He can hear everything, and he's basically very disappointed that the trainees are not taking this seriously. Now the next scene is very cool, something obviously moving forward, none of this is in the manga, but oh my gosh, this was really cool. It was two trainees, looked like they were patrolling at night in this kind of alleyway, and they're kind of joking around. They're talking about Nezuko. They don't really know exactly what's happening, but it kind of gives us the picture of all of the trainees, everyone that's at the Hashira Manor does know kind of what's going on with Nezuko. Now, we find out that maybe they're talking about it isn't the greatest thing because they're being spied on. When I was watching this part with my friends, they thought that maybe Tengen would jump out and scare them because in the scene previously, we had just seen that Tengen had overheard everybody complaining, and so it kind of would have put them in their place. Now, I didn't think that was gonna happen because I don't think it's really good for the Hashira to trick them in ways like that. It could easily turn around and whip them in the butt. if there happened to be a demon there, if someone got killed, anything could have gone wrong. So I do think it was good that Tengen didn't jump out and scare them, but kind of shame on that other Slayer trainee to jump out and scare his little buddy there, because he kind of deserved to die. Okay, to put this part into perspective, it kind of irritated me. If that were me and my friend were walking down this alley, my friend decides it's a good idea to scare me when demons are probably all around. We don't know where they are. It's nighttime, that's when they come out. My friend jumps out. The first thing that that kid should have done is swing their sword to kill whatever it was that startled them. Because what else would it be other than a demon? So if he's falling back, he's as good as dead. Like, if that were a demon that popped out from behind that corner, that kid would have died. And so that part kind of irritated me because, like, yes, I know they're messing around. I don't know, it just didn't make much sense to me, and I know that they're kids, whatever, but they kind of need to take this more seriously. And they are now. They kind of got scared after looking into the other alley and hearing some things that maybe they wish they didn't hear. And what they heard is a spy. It looks like a demon. We see that it says 4. Now, if you're not a manga reader, you might be wondering, didn't we just get rid of Upper 4 in the Swordsmith Village arc, Tentengu? Yes, we did. He died. Everyone saw that. And so you might be wondering who this is. Obviously, I'm not going to say because that would be a spoiler. Now, something that I would like to say is that obviously this part was not in the manga now in this current state of the story, but it's actually explained a little bit later in the manga. So what's interesting about these eyes that are spying is that yes, they were in the manga, but they didn't hold as significant as a role as I would have liked them to, because I actually didn't remember they were in the manga. And again, I've only read the manga once. This is my second time around as I'm comparing them to the Hashira Training arc, but they didn't really play a prominent role. And I think by adding this eyeball now that's spying is really smart on the animator's part, because they are setting up something that's going to happen later. It's giving us more context along the way instead of just bombarding us with everything later and having everyone feel the need to think like, oh my gosh, like, was this happening the whole time? Like, we had no idea. And so this is really important, and it's actually really cool they added this in. And so I can't really be too mad at this scene of the trainees walking down. I was irritated about their decisions, but this scene as a whole is really, really well animated and very important to the story. So don't forget about 4. We'll be seeing more of that later. We jump back to Tanjiro and the rest of the trainees. We are reminded yet again that Tanjiro is having the time of his life. He's enjoying the training. All of this is super easy for him. We see that he's outrunning everybody. He's doing so many squats when everyone else is on the ground dying. He's lifting the heaviest guy there up the mountain. He can easily talk about things from his past, like fighting demons and how much in pain you are fighting them easily with a smile on his face. He's happy to be there. And all of that wasn't really in the manga as much as it is in the anime. And so I think it's a really good reminder for the anime to more deeply explain, yes, this is really easy for Tanjiro. He is very different than all the rest of the trainees. And I don't mean different as in like he's special, he's the main character, whatever. I just mean that like he's been through so much more. We've been with him obviously throughout all of his adventures. And so building that up until now, it's really good to see that yes, these other trainees could be just like him if they work just as hard. We get another really quick scene of Tengen. His wives are there, Tanjiro is there, and this has nothing to do with comparing to the manga. Well, this wasn't in the manga, but Tengen says a line, something like he doesn't want his trainees to have their flame burn out. The word flame just made me think of Rengoku, and it made me all like giddy and have chills. I was like, oh. I'm also an Uzuren shipper, so like, I just thought it was cute. It means absolutely nothing, but maybe to the Uzuren shippers. We get a very short scene that actually happened in the previous episode with Giyu and Tanjiro having their contest. And so this part was actually very cute because not only because it's Tanjiro and Giyu and I love them and their kind of brotherly bond they have, but it also reinforced that Giyu still very much does want to be a part of the training, and he's getting that out to Tanjiro now. Now, we talked about that a little bit in my last episode, but I was talking about how the manga didn't really strictly explain that Giyu did want to do the training with Tanjiro. It was never really just flat out said like it is in the anime, and so I think it's really sweet that they still went back to this scene so that the viewers know Giyu does care, he respects Tanjiro, and he wants what's best for him. He has the Tanjiro effect of looking up to Tanjiro now after he helped him, and so he wants to help him back. Okay, we get another really awesome scene of Sanemi and Obanai kind of calling back to the very intro of this season so far. And so this part is incredibly important. Obviously not in the manga, because that first part of how the anime started was also not in the manga, where we saw them jump into the Infinity Castle and then it disappears. They saw all of the demons that were there, the kind of city-like structure that the Infinity Castle had. And so this part in this episode is explaining their kind of worries and speculations on literally what was that. They can't really talk to Kagaya about it, and so it's kind of up to Sanemi and Obanai. Now, it's really good that the anime chose to go back to Sanemi and Obanai's thoughts about all of this to show that they're still thinking about it. They're not going to leave it as kind of like a plot hole of showing the Infinity Castle with Sanemi and Obanai and then just not really talking about it again, since it wasn't in the manga. And so they really are going back to that and fleshing out this whole scene. And this also gives more context to what is to come in future episodes. So stay tuned for that, no spoilers here. Something else new that we get is Obanai and Sanemi talking about dueling each other because they need to help their own training along, just as they are doing for their trainees. Now, something else that they also state that's important is that their trainees, both sides, are not really suited to be Hashira. Tengen was also seeing those same worries, and so again, I'm kind of getting worried for what life is going to look for these Slayers once we get to the final battle, because no one is on the level of the Hashira, Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke. There's very few that are going to actually be playing a huge part in this next battle if they can't get their training together, so they need to focus. But I'm so excited to see Sanemi and Obanai kind of brawl it out with each other in next week's episode. It's gonna be so cool. From the very start, I've wanted to see more of like the Hashira just having everyday conversations, interactions, and so it's cool to see like kind of the two coldest Hashira kind of get this time on the screen. We're getting more awesome development for Tengen. Throughout this whole episode, of course, we learned from the wives that he still cries out in his sleep. He feels bad about leaving the Hashira, but of course he had to. He is kind of broken from the entertainment district. We also know that he's the weakest Hashira, so he can't really live up to kind of maybe some of what the other Hashira are like. And so it's just interesting again to understand what's going on in his head and how he does truly care. He wants to fight. He knows he can't, but at least he's training people to hopefully succeed in the future of whatever Muzan has in store for them. In our last scene here, we get Tengen's last training with Tanjiro. He is pretending to be a demon, which is really cool. He's doing it with Tanjiro and the rest of the trainees. And what's really cool is that we get to see him use more of his old shinobi activity and abilities. And so in the entertainment district, I feel like we kind of focused a lot on kind of his whole breathing style of sound. We didn't really touch on other abilities as much. And so in this, we can really see how fast he is. We can see how stealthy he is. At times we can't even see him move on the screen. It's just his stick clabbering into the trainees. And so that was also very good development on Tengen's part. We see that Tanjiro kind of miserably fails Tengen's mission for him, but then he starts to get a little better at the end, and we see the group of trainees starting to come together as a team to defeat a demon. Now this part actually gave me chills. It's really cool seeing Tanjiro have a smile on his face while he's training. Again, this is easy for him, but kind of adding in the element of teamwork was a little difficult, it seemed, since a lot of, his people went down, but he's had to learn through that and grow through that, and it looked like he did. All of the trainees at the end were closing in on Tengen, And I'm sure Tengen still won, but I'm sure everyone else gave a very valiant effort. And again, Tengen is the weakest Hashira, so it was cool to see Tanjiro go head to head with him and hold his ground against the Hashira. But remember, he still is the weakest. Tanjiro does still have a long way to go, even though he is very special. We end the episode with Tanjiro moving on to the next Hashira, which is Muitsuro, my favorite Hashira. I will be cosplaying him when I talk about Muitsuro's episode next time, so please stay tuned for that. Of course, if you want to see me in cosplay as Muitsuro and hear my breakdown of how that episode differs and some similarities from the manga. And so it is at this time that I'm going to wrap up this kind of breakdown of the anime and the manga for this episode. And so I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to be talking a bit about spoilers for what is to come. It's not really a huge spoiler, it's more of a sad spoiler, but I'm gonna talk about it, so it's your discretion whether you stay or not, but we are going to move into that now. Now, if you've seen my other two videos for breaking down the episodes, you know that I always love to end these videos on a very sad point. I'm gonna do it again, I'm sorry, but this was a scene that me and my boyfriend noticed when we watched it through for the first time. At the very end, we see that Tanjiro is supporting kind of this other guy next to him on his left, our right, and then on the other side, there's this other Slayer trainee who has a buzz cut looking thing. Now, these two characters look very distinct, especially the one with the buzz cut, because we actually see them again in the Infinity Castle dying. So this scene is very well added in. We get to see these characters saying that they are going to train hard, they are going to get stronger for whatever fight lies ahead. And so, yes, we know from the manga that they do try to get stronger, but they aren't strong enough against Muzan's forces, because unfortunately in the future we do see them die. Now this is a very special scene, also very sad. Of course, we don't really know these characters as well as we do other characters that die, but again, amazing foreshadowing on the creator's end. And so that is going to officially wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!